Hello, welcome to the Private Fund Manager. My name is Mandy. I'm from ISTech, and I'm just going to run through a quick demo of the system, how it works, how it links with online payments, generating reports and so on. If any questions pop up, do give us a call or drop us an email. Happy to talk through. So at the moment, as you can see on screen, we have the welcome screen for the Private Fund Manager. It's a very, very simple system to use in terms of moving around. As you can see, across the top of the screen, we have a series of tabs. The one we're on is in grey, and to move around, I literally click on the different tabs. Sometimes I have a second row of tabs and sometimes a third row of tabs, and again it's click on the one you want, it changes colour, and you can then do whatever you need to do in that section. We do have some menus at the very top left which add some additional features, but the majority of day-to-day stuff is carried out on the various tabs. So the first thing to mention is that we automatically link with pupil record systems so that all the details of the pupils and their parents are always in PFM and up to date. So if we want to create contact lists for trips, it will tell us people's names and addresses, phone numbers, emails, medical information, etc. All that information being brought in from the pupil record system. We can check that at any time on the setup area where there is a button that shows me all the pupils and all the personal details related to each pupil. And as I say, this is updated automatically from the record system. On the system then, the first bit of setup we need to do is to create all of our different accounts. So our different trips, clubs, fundraisers, whatever it is you wish to track information on. So these are what we call short codes. You might call them cost codes or nominal codes. You can have as many as you like. They can be deleted when they're no longer required, archived off. And on this system I have a very simple set of codes. You could use numbers, I like words, I think they're much clearer, but whatever you're comfortable with. So I've got some trips, I've got children in need, some revision guides, I've got some donations, school fund, uniform, etc. So say as many or as little as those as you like. So if I click on the Rome trip, as you can see, all the details about the Rome trip comes up. When we set up our accounts, they can be designated as either individual accounts here in the tracking area, which means we do want to know all the students involved, who's paid, when they paid, have they given consent forms, etc. Other options include lump sum, which means we just want money in and out, so it could be vending machines, it could be non-uniform days. We don't want to know every individual pupil, we just want the lumps in and out. And then we have an option as well for gift aid. So if this is a donation type account, school fund type account, which we can then reclaim the gift aid on, then the system will manage that for us. If you have an online payment system such as Parent Pay or Parent Mail, etc., then each of the accounts that you set up on Parent Pay, Parent Mail, has to have a corresponding account here. Sometimes there are more than one on your online payment system. So you might have on your online payment system sweatshirts in all different sizes. You might have PE shirts, book bags, whatever, but they may all feed in on Private Fund Manager just into one account called uniform. So you can have all corresponding accounts, or you can have kind of summary accounts here on the account system that correspond to multiple accounts. And the way that we get the systems to link together is simply by the use of a short code. So whatever we put in our short code, it has to be put into the accounting area on your online payment system, and by simply doing that, the systems will link together and know who's paid what and when. So the first bit of setup then is to go through and create all of these accounts, designating them as individual lump sum. If you do not have an online payment system, you will then go through into an additional step of telling the system which students are going on each trip, or which students are associated with each club, etc. We do that simply by looking at the whole school list. Clearly my whole school list is very tiny. Yours will be much, much bigger, and it's alphabetical. And all you do to add someone to a club, trip, etc. is double click their name, or you can choose an entire class or an entire year group. There are shortcuts for that. So we've now set the system up. The students are on, I've already put bank accounts on, and we've now got our individual accounts. You don't have to have all of them on. You can add, of course, as you go along. The next step then is to start using the system by putting transactions on. And for that we use the second tab across, which is called Transaction Entry. It's got a series of sub-areas: receipts, payments, direct transfers, etc. And within receipts, I've got a series of options. Banking, which is all to do with cash and checks. Refunds, bounce checks, direct receipts, which is if you allow parents to pay directly into your bank account rather than going via some form of online payment system. Or the last one, internet receipts. If what you're processing does not go through an online payment system, we simply add it here to the grid manually. So let's say we've had some sort of event for children in need. We've received a whole chunk of cash in. To record that money, I click on the pull down arrow in this banking area, choose children in need, and either cash, checks or both, I type in the amount of money I've received. So I've had £223, it defaults to today's date, and you can put in any sort of narrative you like. So this could be lower school, non-uniform. So that's added that to my banking screen. It's money that I'm waiting to send to the bank in the form of cash or cheques. And I can continue to add all sorts of other things. Maybe I've had some uniform. I'm going to put £25 and I'm going to say tracksuit. I've had a bit more children in need. This time it was a cheque for £10 and I'm going to say donation. And if I have money from pupils for trips, clubs, etc., and I do not use an online payment system, I also add my money from them in the same way. So I'm going to take some money from the Rome trip. If I know the codes, I can just type them in. If not, I pick them up. And as you can see, it lists all the pupils for Rome, what they currently owe, whether or not they've given me a consent form. I've chosen this concept of passport. You can add as many of those as you like. And I can just go down and say, yeah, Sasha has given me a cheque for £125. James has given me a cheque for £250. And Louisa has brought in £100 of cash. This is me recording these entries manually if I don't have an online payment system. As we go along, the banking adds up the cash, adds up the checks, gives me an overall total, which is the money that when I'm ready, I can take to the bank. For those of you that have online payment systems, we go to a slightly different place, which is receipts, but all the way down the end to internet receipts. As I've mentioned, to make our two systems talk to each other, online payments and PFM, we need to ensure when we set up accounts on our online payment system, we tell it the short code that we have allocated to the account here on PFM. It knows who the pupils are because each of us allocate an admission number, so it already knows who the pupils are. And so all we need to do is click this button in the bottom left and it will automatically go off and read in all the entries that it needs. If it has any issues, it will pop up a message as mine did there. So I just need to go and check that I've got some payments on my online payment system. Okay, so I've just done a quick check and there are a few on there. So I'm going to click the Read Internet Receipts file. And as you can see, the blue dots indicate it's trying to do something. It's looking for any new payments. It never duplicates, even if you ask it to read this information repeatedly. It always knows what it's seen before and what it needs now. So it's telling me that it's looked at the online payments and it's found something for a short code that it doesn't recognise. So I'm not too sure what that one is, but I'm going to say it's this account, so I can easily change the import. It's now told me it's found a student that it doesn't recognise. Very rare for that to happen, but if it does, we simply tell it who the student is. Got a couple, I guess, of perhaps new starters, so let's just go through and check. Now, this is a shame that it's doing this, because normally it knows every single student because the systems are linked together. And as you can see, it's come up and said, fantastic, 8 new records have been retrieved. So some 20s, some 50s and some 10s, who the information is from, the date that it was received, and the account that it belongs to. So we had a bit of a click, click, click there because there were some new students that it didn't recognise. Normally we simply press that button and all of the entries appear instantly on the screen. If any of those entries were cash and cheques, so if you put your cash and cheques through parent mail, parent pay, so that the parents have a full record, it would have told us there was some cash and cheques, and they would now appear here on the banking screen together with any other manual cash and cheques I've added to the system. So if you have online payments, it's internet receipts. You click the button in the bottom left-hand corner. 99% of the time it instantly appears on screen, but if it's anything that it's not quite sure about, it always warns you and asks you to pick the appropriate bank. So that information has come in, I've got the opportunity to print it, and it's now cleared the screen because I've said I want to bank or save it. With my cash and cheques, the same thing goes. When I am ready to take this money to the bank, and this list could be really long or really short, I simply press that same button, the Bank It button. It asks me which bank account the money will go into. It offers me the next paying in which I can change, and again it gives me an option to print a document summarising the cash and cheques, or there's a little tick box you can't quite see at the bottom which will subtotal it into different trips. So I can print that, and as soon as I've banked it, it disappears from the grid. So in terms of day-to-day use of the system, if you have an online payment system, it's pretty much a case of you come into the system, transaction entry, internet receipts, press the button in the bottom left, and it will read the new payments in. If you've added any new trips to your online payment system, you've just got to remember to add them to account maintenance. What else have we got in a transaction entry then? Well, as receipts, which is money you've received, and I will just point out there's also refunds and bounced checks that are covered in there. Also in transaction entry, we of course have got payments that go back out of the system. So when we're making purchases, it looks very much the same. So I've got an after school club, I need to buy some supplies. It asks me which bank account the money's coming from, and I can have multiple. It should know the next check number based on the previous one I've used. I can add suppliers or leave it as sundry, and I'm going to say I've spent £12.50. It's not an invoice, I've bought fruit. And again, I can have multiple payments if I want to do a payment run all in one go. Got something for Alton Towers, let's say, £200, and I'm going to say that is an invoice. I've got something for Rome, oh it's Romans, that'll do. If I pick a wrong account, I can delete lines off very easily. I click on the grey box on the left hand side of the line and just take it off. So I'm going to go for Rome, and I'm going to say £500 for coaches. Get the idea? This can be as long or as short as I want. As a default, I would just press the save button and go off and handwrite the checks, but I've also got an option to print checks if you've got A4 cut sheet checks with remittances on. Or I can link into any of the BACS systems if you have BACS associated with your private fund bank account. So you can do all sorts of options there. You can print remittances, email remittances. I'm just going to save mine and I'm going to use this as a list to write the checks. And there's a cancel payment if you need to. Also in transaction entry, transfers, which is where we can do journals between accounts or between banks, between students, or the same student but between different trips. And last of all, in transaction entry, we have the bank reconciliation area. Very straightforward, exactly the same as any other bank rec you've done. You work from the paper statement, you check your opening balance, and then use the white tick boxes down the left hand side to confirm that an item is on your paper statement, and as you do so the statement closing balance changes accordingly, so you can tie that up with your paper statement. You can half do it, go away, come back, carry on, so it's nice and flexible, and only when you're ready and it balances, as in the statement closing balance here is identical to your paper statement, do you commit the changes, which is to perform a bank rec, and it produces a nice reconciliation report with a list of unpresented items. So bank rec, really straightforward to do. When you have online payment systems, you also will want to do a bank reconciliation for the online payment holding account. And so with this, we use a special help facility. So depending on whether you're paid on a weekly basis or a batch basis, I think for parent mail, for example, if you use parent pay, you're paid just once a week, the system will automatically give you this little total to say, the total for the week in question is £270. Does that agree with what parent pay or school comms say was your total for the week? And when it does, you simply press the F1 function key, and as you can see, it auto ticks all the items that make the total. So in terms of online payment systems, it's really, really helpful with doing reconciliation of what you've received and what the company has actually paid you. So we've got money in, money out, we've done our bank rec. So let's have a quick look at the reports we can get out of the system. The fourth main heading across the top is screen inquiries. And again, it's broken down into sections: financial reports, transaction lists, reports by account and pupil reports, and then receipts and a report generator. Under financial reports, as you can see, we have the standard things like an income report. It lists all of our accounts, money in, money out, and a current closing balance for each account. We've got a summary balance sheet which lists all the different bank accounts and how much we have in each. And then we have full balance sheet, trial balance, audit trail, account balances, all the normal financial style reports. However, we also have a heading called Reports by Account, where you can pick just one of these accounts, let's say Rome, and you can get all sorts of data about it, including a summary statement which shows all the money in, all the money out, and a current balance for Rome. And then we have further detail, which is the pupil reports. And we can get information then, for example, on each pupil, what they've paid, what they currently owe, have they given a consent form, as well as information such as contact information, home and mobile phone numbers of the parents, genders, dates of birth, and important medical information, obviously kept up to date and imported from your pupil record system. Also little reports such as debtor reports, all sorts of labels, etc. And over on the right hand side here, an automatic link through to write emails and letters to people on a particular trip or account. And those people we could write to if they owe a certain amount of money, if they haven't given a consent form. So it's a really, really quick and easy mail merge so that you can send emails or letters to say whatever you need to people associated with a particular trip or account. So lots of options there. There are loads of reports. If the one you want isn't there, there's also a report generator, and you literally tick the boxes you fancy on a report of your choice. One last one here is transaction lists. If you pick a particular pupil, we can get an entire list for that pupil of everything they've paid across the board, all their different accounts, as well as getting a report for that pupil of what they currently owe for all their different accounts. We do have an invoicing module where you can generate invoices for music lesson, travel, anything you fancy. We have a link that does gift aid as well as charity commission type reports. And of course we have a full proper period end close down routine for month or year end. The system's fully multi-user, so you can have multiple users on the system. Each person can be added with a name and password, and you can give people different levels of access. So some people you might choose that they can only look at their reports, look at information and look at trips. Other people will obviously need full access or just data entry access. And you can have as many instances of the package as you wish for the same cost. So if you've got one account, one set of accounts that deals with Journey, another that deals with school funds, you can have completely separate installations so that they are kept as completely separate accounts packages. System comes with full support, telephone support, email support, web support. We offer lots of training and help to get the system up and running. Hopefully that's covered everything. Please do call us if you have any queries or you'd like to discuss anything further. Thanks for taking a look. It's Mandy. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.